Awesome. I know that there's going to be some late arrivals. I hear there's possibly a couple fires out in Oakland, some buildings, and so we may have a lot of people showing up late due to some traffic issues. Okay. So welcome. This looks like it's a definitely exciting topic here on ADUs. Good morning. I am Scott Hill with the Bay East Housing Opportunities Committee, and we're putting on today a forum regarding ADUs. There's been a lot of interest surrounding this topic for some time now. Before we kick things off, though, I would like to recognize the Bay East Housing Opportunities Committee members. If you wouldn't mind taking just a quick minute, stand up, let everybody see your beautiful faces here today. Thank you. Thank you. Kicking in and out, so I'll talk loud. All right, so we organized this event because ADUs are definitely an important piece of the housing puzzle and an opportunity for real estate professionals to help educate their clients about what ADUs can mean to them. This morning we've assembled an awesome panel of experts to share their experience with ADUs. I've got a list of questions for the panel, and I'm sure that you guys are also going to have some questions for them. So at the end of the event, we'll go ahead and open it up to you guys for some questions. Okay. Let's get through my list, and then we'll go ahead and do that. So I'm going to introduce first Chris Gaylor. Chris, raise your hand. Give him a welcome, please. Okay, he is the general manager of Gaylor Design Build Incorporated, which is an award-winning design build firm founded in 1961. He has a 21-year consistent track record of completing every project on time and on budget. The general manager applies his contractor's license, communications degree, and tech background to help the company produce top quality and innovative projects. He represents the third generation in the family business. His previous experience includes working for technology company Ericsson before joining Gaylor Construction in 2003. Mr. Gaylor is actively involved in community organization, including the San Ramon Rotary and the San Ramon Valley Education Foundation. He's a graduate of UC Santa Barbara and is raising two sons with his wife Natalie, while also rooting for the Giants and exploring the great outdoors with their Labrador Retriever. Thank you very much, Chris, for being here today. Next, we have Harry Payne. Give him a round welcome here, please. He is the sales manager for San Francisco's primary residential mortgage. He has more than 25 years of experience as a mortgage professional, including corporate relocation, a national mortgage broker, a retail mortgage consultant, and facilitating builder sales. Mr. Payne dedicates at least 2 days each week volunteering at his favorite charitable organization. He lives in both Oakland and San Francisco and has a son and 2 grandchildren that are his joy. Thanks very much, Eric, for being here today. Next, we have Penny Woods. All right. Penny Woods is an appraiser with BPW Appraisal and Realty Service and a Bay East Realtor member. She has more than 30 years of experience. That includes appraisals, property management, and real estate sales. She's been a Bay East Association of Realtors member since 1982. In 1994, she started her own firm and focuses exclusively on non-lender residential appraisal work and specializes in unique and unusual properties. Ms. Woods is the immediate past president of the REAA Corporate Board of Directors, serving in that capacity for 5 years, and is a founding member of the Bay East chapter of REAA. When she has time away from the appraisal industry, she can often be found working in local community theater. Thank you very much for joining us today, Penny. All right, so let's get started, guys. Panelists, I'm going to start with some questions here, and as mentioned earlier, feel free to jump in at any time, even if it doesn't sound like it might be in your direct wheelhouse. All right, first question. In one sentence, and while wearing your builder or lender or appraiser property management hat, please describe what an ADU means to you. Who would like to start?
Well, since I have the mic, I'll start. An ADU makes an appraisal much more interesting and sometimes a little bit more complicated.
As a lender who's responsible for financing our clients out here in the Bay Area, ADU means a way to subsidize these high mortgage payments that we have out here. So that's what an ADU means to me.
Really, as a builder, and in general, it's a way to solve the housing issues of not enough space and give people the opportunity to create more living space.
Okay, excellent. Next question, is there a standard definition of an ADU? And if there is, what would that be?
Well, there's actually more than one definition, especially with the new law. The law talks about two different kinds of ADUs. An ADU that can be freestanding or can be attached to the main structure. And then they have what's called a junior ADU. These typically would be something that is smaller and has a the largest size it can be is 300 square feet. It typically goes into an existing space in the house. Maybe this is part of the garage conversion into an ADU. And there are two separate types of regulations defining both of them.
Just to kind of add on to what Penny said, there are those different types of ADUs, but the biggest portion and the biggest defining part is it has to offer independent living from the main structure of the home. So it has to offer a kitchen, a bathroom, and a living space.
And the only thing I would add to that is it needs to be part of the lot where the main home is located.
Okay, excellent, thank you guys. Important question here, where can and can't ADUs specifically be built?
It depends city by city, town by town, county by county, size of the lot. A lot of it is fitting within the setbacks. A lot of the different places will shrink the setbacks. So on a detached, a lot of places will let you do actually 5 feet from the front, or 5 feet from the back and the side. But really, it's really more complicated than what it should be. I know they tried to make it a system and a process, but every town interprets it differently. The best thing to do is to call and ask, because it could be one answer 1 week and then they change it a month later, which is always fun. But you can usually do them, like you said, it has to be on the lot. There are a lot of opportunities just working within that town or county to figure out where you can put it on your lot.
And I would just simply refer everybody to Google. Whatever city that you are looking at, just Google it relative to ADU regulations, and you'll quickly find the answer.
Yeah, it is very city specific or county, depending on where your property is located. And the zoning is always one of the most important things you need to start with. That's the place you have to start to find out what your zoning is and what type of ADU will be something that can be worked into that particular zoning and the space, as we were told, having to do with setbacks and whatnot.
So the next question kind of piggybacks on that. Do all cities allow ADUs to be built?
Well, at one point in time, the answer to that question was no. However, one of the reasons we're most probably all here is that the state passed some ordinances which changed that. And now the cities can't tell you no, but they can place restrictions on building because of zoning and the types of space that you want versus what will go into that zoning. The other thing that is something that you need to think about is with some of the cities that currently have had ADUs and secondary units, specifically Berkeley and Oakland, the question for the owner and the appraiser down the line is whether the two units are actually a primary residence and a secondary unit, an ADU, or whether the second unit that's on the property actually makes it into a two-unit income property. They don't need to be attached, but it can still be considered duplex property. So you really have to be careful about the zoning.
Similar to what you said, there is a ministerial process. That's what California passed, so as long as you meet these certain criteria, they have to allow you to proceed. But certain towns such as Piedmont make it very difficult to do so because you also have to go through their planning, and they don't have to approve it because of planning. So they can deny it because they don't like the way it looks or it doesn't fit within what they think it should be. They can't deny it on the grounds that it's an ADU. So there are some towns or cities that are kind of trying to get around having to approve it, but most places do let you do it.
Okay, so next question. How and where does a homeowner start the ADU design process? Do they start with an architect, a local planning department? How would they go about that?
Yes. They can start with an architect. They can also work with a design build company like ours where we do the designing and the building. But they really should find somebody to work with first. It can be very confusing. Some of the different towns have application forms that are 30 pages long. If you don't know what you're doing, it can be very confusing. Even if you do know what you're doing, it can still be confusing. But finding someone that you trust to work with and have them guide you through the process is really the best part, whether it's a design build company or an architect.
And from my perspective as a lender, I would say you start with me. You want to know what the financing looks like. You want to know how to finance anything that you're going to discuss with the architect or the design builder. So they need to start with the financing so they know exactly what kind of financing is available to do what they're trying to do. And they will know what their numbers are as far as payments as well, how that would affect their cash flows.
All right, excellent, thank you. How much does it cost to build an ADU, and how would a real estate professional, advise their client if building an ADU is going to be a really good investment for them?
Sure. This is probably the question I get the most of how much does whatever my project is cost. It's always the hardest question to answer because I don't know what your project looks like. But for this, let's say, as Penny mentioned, there's really 3 different types of ADUs. There's the interior, junior ones, and then there's attached and detached. Typically what we see in this general area, if you're converting the existing living space inside the home to add a kitchen, a bathroom, and a living area, it starts around $100,000, $150,000. And it can go up because you can build upwards of 1,200 square feet, detached ADUs in some areas, and you can kind of put whatever you want into it as long as you meet the minimum criteria. So it's hard to say exactly. We don't work off the square footage numbers because I wish it was that easy, but it's really not. It's kind of a disservice to just say, hey, everything's $200 or $300 a square foot because your finishes are really going to dictate what the actual price ends up being.
Okay. On the second half of that question about how much it's going to add to the cost or the value of your property, the question is also very vague. It depends on what you're doing, whether you're doing the garage conversion into a junior ADU or whether you're doing that 1,200 square foot detached, which is almost a second house. So it's just as specific to that particular design and unit as the construction costs.
And as it's been mentioned about these detached ADUs, from a lending standpoint, matter of fact, I've never even seen this. I financed homes all over the country until I came out here to the Bay Area to see detached duplexes or triplexes. And again, really what we're saying is this an ADU or is this actually a second unit? If it's a second unit, the financing is different than it is if it's simply an ADU.
And
Yeah.
okay, all right. This goes back to one of my earlier comments. Excuse me, that you need to check with your zoning, because adding a second unit, if your zone, the easiest way to explain it would be the perfect situation where your property is zoned R1, or whatever that particular city's variation of R1, residential one unit zoning. You can add a secondary unit. There are restrictions to the size of the unit that can go on. It can be attached or detached. If some of the zonings, because not all R1 zonings are exactly the same, every city or county has different variations. And sometimes you can have an R1 zoning that actually allows for 2 legal units, meaning that you could put a second unit on there that would make the property considered 2 full legal units, not a 1 unit and a secondary unit. So it's very important to know what your zoning is and understand the zoning, because just as the loans are different, if you're going to be financing the loans for a single R1 property with an ADU, a secondary unit, is a different kind of appraisal project than if it's considered a duplex, which puts it in the 2 to 4 family type of property and a totally different kind of appraisal and analysis.